Yeah, well, there have been epic struggles in Canadian political culture over the years, and certainly 25 years ago, in the summer of '87, when former Premier of British Columbia Bill Vander Zalm and former Prime Minister of Canada Brian Mulroney signed into an agreement that said we're not going to log anymore. No more logging in the southern third of Haida Gwaii. We're going to create a national park reserve. It took a couple more years for the final ink to be dry with the Council of the Haida Nation agreeing. But for many, many years, I saw the struggle to protect Guayahanas, which is now a national park reserve in Haida Gwaii, as probably the most kind of really epic struggle, where it was really clear if we didn't stop the logging — they were logging in triple shifts, by the way, to try to get as much logged as possible before the national park could be created, logging 1,000-year-old trees in the temperate rainforests of coastal Haida Gwaii, species unknown anywhere else on the planet. So it was a really amazing struggle. It was one of those archetypal moments of environment against jobs, but there really weren't jobs in the logging for long term. So it became environment plus jobs versus jobs minus environment. It became a really clear argument for why we had to stand up for what matters. And it spoke to values, and it captured the involvement of tens of thousands of Canadians to save that area. Since that time, I don't think we've been in anything quite as epic as the so-called Enbridge Northern Gateway Pipeline. I call it the Great Pipeline of China. It does not serve Canada's interests. I mean, even leaving out the environmental implications, just looking at jobs, this has nothing to do with Canadian interests. It has everything to do with shipping out a raw product as quickly as possible to another country with lower environmental standards so they can refine it there, and the jobs disappear with it. When you put it in the frame of environment, you've got, okay, so we're shipping out the jobs and losing the benefits that could come from economic development in Canada, and we're building a dangerous pipeline through 1,200 kilometers of rugged wilderness across northern BC to stick this stuff in super tankers, to navigate the tricky fjords and islands and inlets up to Kitimat, and then try to get through Hecate Strait and all the coastal areas of BC that are so very hazardous in super tankers. I mean, then you begin to put the larger frame. What's this material for? Oh, this is fossil fuels for burning. And we can't get enough fossil fuels for burning because, after all, we're in a desperate attempt to destroy the planet as fast as possible. Well, that's not the goal. Nobody's goal, including the government of Canada's, is to destroy the environment as fast as possible. So it brings you up short on a whole bunch of issues. First Nations sovereignty over those lands, the importance of British Columbians having a say over what happens on our lands and along our coasts, for no jobs benefit at all for Canada. The jobs benefit is better in refining crude here, and the jobs benefit goes way up when we say, okay, we're producing crude oil in northern Alberta, but our goal is to move ourselves off of fossil fuels as a source of energy. How do you do those two things together? You start saying this material is more valuable down the road as the feedstock to all kinds of petrochemical processes, to making plastics, burning it to drive our industries when we've got a lot of other choices in renewables. Other countries are investing in renewables, and here's Canada clinging to fossil fuels. So you roll all those things up, and you should almost thank Enbridge for giving us the epic struggle against stupidity, to give us an opportunity to say no to the most risky, fast, it's a risky, incomprehensible scheme driven by interests outside of Canada. And we should just say no. And that's something that you need to be involved in politics to say effectively. If you're not picking the right leaders, if you're not picking the right MPs and MLAs, if you don't have people who are willing to organize to say to Stephen Harper, not sure what country you think you're the Prime Minister of, but this project is not in Canada's national interest.